Top 1. Impossible polygonal masonry. Precision stonework, cutting with tolerances that seem impossible. You are standing before a massive wall, but calling it a wall feels inadequate. It is a complex jigsaw puzzle composed of stones the size of small houses, cut into irregular polygons that interlock in 3 dimensions. You attempt to slide a razor blade between 2 blocks, but you cannot. The joint is tighter than half a millimeter, thinner than a credit card. This is the Sacsayhuaman Fortress, high in the Cusco highlands of Peru, built around 2500 BCE. Now blink. You are in Egypt at the Osirian in Abydos. You see the same technique and the same impossible precision. Blink again. You are at Baalbek in Lebanon, then Easter Island, then Japan. Different continents, different millennia. Yet the impossibility is identical. Spanish conquistadors first encountered Sacsayhuaman in the 1530s and believed it was the work of demons. The Inca themselves claimed they did not build it. Modern archaeological surveys began in earnest in the 1930s, with precision measurements conducted by engineers in the 1980s and 2000s, confirming what the naked eye suggested. These joints should not exist. The largest stone at Sacsayhuaman weighs approximately 200 tons, 128,000 geokinon, and interlocks with its neighbors through complex polygonal geometry that engineers today struggle to understand. At the Osirian in Egypt, granite blocks weighing over 100 tons fit with joints measuring less than 1 millimeter in thickness. Engineer Christopher Dunn measured them in 1995 with precision instruments and found tolerances that rival modern CNC machining. The trilithon stones at Baalbek weigh 800 tons each and sit 20 feet above the ground. Modern cranes capable of lifting such weight were only invented in the 1960s. At Ollantaytambo in Peru, engineer Jean-Pierre Pratzen documented in 1985 that the andesite blocks show pounding marks consistent with river cobble tools. Yet the precision achieved exceeds what those tools should theoretically produce. The technique appears globally. At the Temple of the Sun in Machu Picchu, researchers using digital microscopy in 2018 found joints averaged 0.2 to 0.5 mm with no mortar. The same aesthetic repeats everywhere. The nubs left on certain stones, the internal metal clamps used in Lebanon and Peru, the specific ratio of large to small stones, and the identical polygonal interlocking in 3 dimensions. It looks as if they came from the same architect's office. Mainstream archaeologists argue that with unlimited manpower, time, and patience, ancient peoples could achieve precision through trial and error. They suggest the polygonal style emerged independently because it provides superior earthquake resistance, as irregular shapes prevent slippage during seismic activity. Copper tools combined with harder stone pounders and abrasive sand could gradually shape even granite. They claim the technique spread through trade networks we haven't fully documented yet, calling it convergent engineering, where similar problems yield similar solutions. However, trial and error doesn't explain the consistency. Engineering analysis by Roger Hopkins for Nova in 1992 attempted to replicate Egyptian stone-cutting techniques. His team abandoned polygonal fitting after achieving only crude approximations with modern tools. If these were independently developed solutions to earthquake resistance, why do they look so identical? The same methodology, the same aesthetic choices, and the same structural approach. Different cultures separated by oceans shouldn't arrive at solutions this precise and similar with the tools we believe they had. Some researchers, including engineer Christopher Dunn in the Giza power plant in 1998, and geologist Robert Schoch in Forgotten Civilization, 2012, proposed these techniques weren't invented multiple times but inherited from an earlier source, a technological knowledge base that spread globally before recorded history. The precision suggests not just craftsmanship, but a shared understanding of geometry and engineering principles. Could these be remnants of a lost technical tradition preserved in stone long after the original practitioners vanished? How did civilizations without iron tools achieve machining tolerances that modern stonemasons struggle to replicate with diamond saws? Why does this specific style appear on opposite sides of the planet? If these were trade-learned techniques, where are the intermediate steps in the evolution of the craft? We may never know, but the stones remain locked together, impossibly tight, waiting. Top 2. Encoded celestial precession. Knowledge of Earth's precession cycle. Stand in the temple of Dendera and look up. On the ceiling, carved in stone, is a circular zodiac showing the constellations exactly as they appeared 2,000 years ago. But hidden within the design is something impossible. Knowledge of a cycle that takes 2,520 years to complete. This is a cycle the human eye cannot observe in a single lifetime, or 10, or even 100. This is Earth's precession, the slow wobble of our planet's axis as it spins through space. Modern science rediscovered it in 1687 when Isaac Newton published Principia Mathematica. The ancient Egyptians encoded it in stone 4,000 years earlier. And they weren't alone. The Dendera zodiac was removed from the temple ceiling by French archaeologist Sébastien-Louis Saulnier in 1821 and transported to the Louvre. Initial analysis dismissed the astronomical precision as coincidence, until French mathematician Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier calculated in the 1820s that the star positions match 50 BCE with uncanny accuracy. Later studies revealed a deeper secret. The zodiac contained markers for precessional ages, tracking the slow drift of stars through time. The Great Pyramid's southern shaft in the King's Chamber pointed precisely to Orion's belt around 2450 BCE, but Egyptologist Robert Bauval calculated in the Orion Mystery, 1994, that the Giza layout mirrors Orion as it appeared in 2500 BCE, exactly one-half precession cycle earlier. The Mayan long count calendar, beginning August 11, 3114 BCE, tracks a 5,925-year cycle that is exactly one-fifth of the 25,920-year precession cycle, as noted by archaeoastronomer Anthony Avini in 2009. The Vedic Yuga system describes 4 ages totaling 25,920 years, with transitions marked by shifts in the vernal equinox through the zodiac, a textbook definition of precession. This appears in the Surya Siddhanta, composed between 400 and 500 CE, but claiming much older sources. At Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the temple's design aligns with the spring equinox in the constellation Draco, but only as Draco appeared in 10,500 BCE. According to researcher Graham Hancock in Heaven's Mirror, 1998, the Sphinx, based on geological weathering analysis by Robert Schoch in 1991, may date to 10,500 BCE and faces due east, where it would have gazed at its celestial counterpart, Leo, on the spring equinox of that era. Egyptian texts reference Zep-Tepi, the first time, dated in astronomical text to approximately 10,500 BCE, matching these precessional calculations. Plato's Timaeus, written around 360 BCE, references Egyptian priests telling Solon that their records extended back 9,000 years to roughly 9,600 BCE, another half precession cycle. Experts say ancient astronomers were excellent observers who noticed the slow drift of stars over centuries and could calculate cycles even without understanding the physical mechanism. The mathematical knowledge required is impressive but not impossible. They simply kept meticulous records across generations. They argue that coincidences of alignment may be selective interpretation. We notice the hits and ignore the misses. But precession moves at 1 degree every 72 years. To observe even one complete pass through a single zodiac constellation takes 2,160 years. To understand the full 25,120-year cycle requires either continuous observation across over 100 generations or inherited knowledge from an earlier source. Why would multiple civilizations independently decide to track this nearly imperceptible phenomenon with such precision? Researchers like Graham Hancock in Fingerprints of the Gods, 1995, and Robert Bauval suggest these alignments point to a common source date of approximately 10,500 BCE when the last ice age ended. The precision suggests inherited memory, a message in astronomy deliberately preserved across millennia. Were these civilizations marking time from a cataclysm that reset human civilization? The stars don't answer. They only turn slowly, marking time we forgot how to read. Top 3. Acoustic resonance in sacred sites. Acoustic architecture in sacred sites. You are standing in a stone chamber buried beneath the earth. The walls are rough megalithic blocks, the ceiling low and oppressive. A guide asks you to hum. You produce a simple sustained note, and the chamber explodes. The sound doesn't just echo, it builds, layering upon itself and vibrating in your chest, your skull, and your bones, until you can't tell if you are producing the sound or it is producing you. When you stop, the silence returns, but your vision swims and your sense of time feels elastic. Archaeologists measured this chamber with modern acoustic equipment and found the resonant frequency is 110 to 111 hertz. Travel 3,000 miles to Peru to the temple at Chavin de Huantar, and you find the same chamber design and the same frequency. At the Temple of Karnak in Egypt, 7,000 miles away, the same phenomenon repeats. Different continents, different builders, identical acoustic engineering. In 1994, acoustics researcher Aaron Watson and archaeologist David Keating measured resonance patterns at Neolithic British sites and discovered that chambers like Newgrange produced sustained resonance at specific frequencies. In 2008, researcher Paolo De Bertolis conducted detailed acoustic analysis at the Hypogeum in Malta, confirming resonance at 110 to 111 hertz throughout the oracle room. This was not an accident, it was design. At Newgrange, Ireland, dated to 3200 BCE, acoustic measurements by Paul Devereux in 2001 recorded sustained resonance at 110 hertz. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, built around 2500 BCE, produces resonance at 110 to 111 hertz specifically in the oracle room, with sound amplification exceeding normal echo by orders of magnitude. Dr. Paolo De Bertolis measured this in 2013. At Chavin de Huantar in Peru, constructed around 1200 BCE, Stanford archaeologist John Rick discovered galleries designed to amplify sound from conch shell trumpets at frequencies centering on 110 hertz. Neuroscience research by Dr. Ian Cook at UCLA in 2008 found that exposure to 110 hertz decreases activity in the language center of the brain and increases activity in emotional processing areas, inducing trance-like states. The ancients were manipulating consciousness through architecture. The King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid exhibits resonance at F-sharp, approximately 110 to 111 hertz, as documented by acoustic engineer John Stuart Reid in 2003. At the Hal Tarxian Temple in Malta, engineer Robert John measured frequency responses in 1996, showing architectural enhancement of specific low frequencies. Modern acoustic modeling by Rupert Till in 2014 demonstrated that Stonehenge's original configuration would have created resonance in the 110 to 120 hertz range. Mainstream archaeologists explain that ancient builders discovered these effects through trial and error, and the frequency overlap is coincidental because 110 hertz is easy to produce with the human voice. They claim there is no evidence the ancients understood frequencies numerically. But these aren't just any chambers. The architecture is specific. Corbelled ceilings, particular stone types like Globigerina limestone or granite, and strategic placement of niches that function as Helmholtz resonators. Modern engineers recognize these as deliberate design features. If the effect was accidental, why is it repeated across sites with no other architectural similarities? Researchers like Paul Devereux in Stone Age Soundtracks Voss 2001 suggest these sites were purpose-built as consciousness-altering spaces. The 110 Hz frequency was chosen because it affects human neurology, implying a sophisticated understanding of the relationship between sound, space, and mental states. These may have been initiation chambers or healing spaces, acoustic engineering preserved in stone when all else turned to dust. Top 4. Liquid mercury and the underworld, mercury and royal burials. Deep beneath a massive earthen pyramid in China lies a tomb that has never been opened. According to ancient texts by historian Sima Qian, in 100 BCE, the tomb contains rivers of flowing mercury representing the rivers of China. Ground-penetrating radar and soil analysis confirmed dangerously high mercury concentrations above the burial chamber. Now cross the Pacific to Teotihuacan, Mexico. In 2003, archaeologist Sergio Gomez discovered a tunnel leading beneath the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent. At its end were 3 chambers filled with ritual objects and pools of liquid mercury, 4,000 liters of it. Same element, same purpose, to recreate the underworld. 2 civilizations separated by 8,000 miles of ocean, With no known contact, both believed mercury was the key to immortality. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang has remained sealed since 210 BCCE, but soil samples reveal mercury levels up to 100 times higher than normal. In 2015, Sergio Gomez announced the discovery of mercury pools in 3 buried chambers at Teotihuacan, dating to 100–600 CE. The quantities were staggering, over 50 tons of liquid metallic mercury. Sima Qian's records describe the Chinese tomb as having seas of mercury and mechanical crossbows for protection. Soil analysis in 1982 and 2020 confirmed mercury saturation averaging 1,440 parts per billion. Mercury was also found in burial chambers at Copan, Honduras, a Maya site where archaeologist E. Willis Andrews found mercury droplets with royal remains. In Chinese alchemy texts like the Huainanzi, mercury was called the essence of yin and believed to grant immortality. Mesoamerican codices reference liquid silver as representing sacred underworld waters. Chemical analysis of Mayan pottery by Rosemary Joyce in 2004 found mercury residue suggesting ceremonial use. Both cultures processed cinnabar extensively. China's Hemudu culture used cinnabar in burials as early as 5500 BCE, and Mesoamerican sites show identical use from 1500 BCE. Both civilizations heated it to extract liquid mercury. Mainstream historians explain this as convergent symbolism. Mercury is a shiny, magical-looking liquid at room temperature. Its reflective properties naturally evoked associations with water and transformation. But mercury is viciously toxic, and ancient peoples knew this. Chinese emperors died from mercury poisoning. Why continue using it in such massive quantities? Why the same symbolic meaning? They could have used water or oils, but they chose mercury specifically for its association with the underworld and immortality. This suggests not just parallel thinking, but parallel revelation. How did two isolated civilizations arrive at identical toxic theology? The mercury pools remain, shimmering in darkness, keeping their secrets. Top 5 Ancient Surgical Mastery, Advanced Surgical Techniques. The year is 600 BCE in northern India. You have lost your nose as punishment for a crime, but a physician named Sushruta offers hope. He measures a leaf from your forehead, cuts a flap of tissue, and with instruments sharper than modern scalps, reconstructs your nose. The surgery succeeds, providing blood supply and sensation. This is the pedicled forehead flap rhinoplasty, and it won't be invented in Europe for another 2,000 years. Sushruta's texts also describe cataract surgery, cesarean sections, and brain surgery. Across the ocean in pre-Columbian Peru, skulls show trepanation success rates of 80 to 90%, with bone regrowth proving patients survive for years. In Egypt, the Edwin Smith Papyrus details brain trauma surgery from 3,500 years ago. Different continents, same impossible medical knowledge. The Sushruta Samhita, composed around 600 BCE, was translated into Latin in the early 1800s, shocking European surgeons. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, a surgical textbook from 1600 BCE, was translated in 1930. Analysis of Peruvian trepanned skulls by John Verano in the 1990s confirmed the high survival rates. Sushruta describes 300 procedures and 42 instruments, using wine and herbs as antiseptics. Techniques like the forehead flap weren't described in the West until 1597. Sushruta's cataract surgery, called couching, involves a curved needle to dislodge the lens. The exact procedure appears in Egypt's Ebers Papyrus from 1550 BCE. The Edwin Smith Papyrus contains 48 cases, including the first descriptions of the brain's convolutions and cerebrospinal fluid, concepts not rediscovered until the Renaissance. Egyptian tomb paintings from 2400 BCE show circumcision with recognizable tools. Analysis of coca leaf residue on Peruvian tools by Sonia Guillen in 2004 confirmed the use of local anesthesia. DNA analysis of mummies by Arthur Aufderheide in 1998 found evidence of successful amputations. Mainstream historians argue these were sophisticated observers who learned through battlefield medicine and empirical observation. They claim wine and honey provided antibacterial properties and that high success rates came from generations of practice. But these texts aren't trial and error journals. They are systematic, comprehensive medical systems. The precision suggests dissection and study far beyond casual observation. If this knowledge develops slowly, where are the cruder, earlier texts? Why do the earliest documents we have appear already sophisticated? The instruments remain in museums, their blades still sharp, but the source of the knowledge remains in shadow. Top 6. Vitrified stone fortifications. Vitrified stone fortifications. You are climbing a hill in Scotland, approaching the ruins of an ancient fort. The stones look wrong. Instead of stacked blocks, they have melted and fused into glassy masses, as if subjected to temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Geological analysis confirms the rock partially liquefied and then cooled into a vitrified shell. To achieve this, you would need an intense heat source like a blast furnace. Yet there are no volcanoes here. Scotland has over 60 of these vitrified forts. You find dozens more in France, Turkey, and India, all dated to roughly the same era and all unexplained. Scottish vitrified forts were first documented by John Williams in 1777. Petrological analysis by Ian Ralston and V. Gordon Child confirmed that vitrification requires temperatures of 1,000 to 200 degrees Celsius. Radiocarbon dating places most Scottish examples between 1000 BC and 500 CE. Similar structures exist at Hattusa, the Hittite capital in Turkey, and at Sambalpur in India, where stone fusion indicates temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius. Experimental archaeology by Ian Ralston in the 1980s attempted to replicate this by burning timber-laced stone walls. He achieved only partial vitrification at the expense of 20 to 30 tons of timber for a small section, far more than ancient societies could reasonably gather. The most accepted theory is that these were timber-laced walls that caught fire during warfare. However, experimental evidence doesn't fully support this. Ralston's attempts required perfect conditions and massive fuel, yet only partially worked. To vitrify entire walls would demand unrealistic quantities of wood. Furthermore, some vitrified sections show no charcoal remains. Why are the interiors of some walls vitrified while the exteriors remain intact, suggesting heat applied from within? At sites like Craig Fadrig, the vitrification is uniform across hundreds of meters. An accidental fire wouldn't burn that consistently. Some researchers have proposed catastrophic plasma events or lost high-temperature technology. The global distribution in the same era could indicate a widespread phenomenon we have failed to identify. The stones remain fused and glassy, their surfaces catching light like frozen fire, while the explanation remains elusive. Top 7. Ancient concrete technology. Ancient concrete technology. Stand inside the Pantheon in Rome and look at the dome, the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world. 2,000 years after construction, it has never been replicated. Modern concrete cracks after 50 years and crumbles after 100, but Roman concrete strengthens over time. In 2017, scientists found that Roman harbor concrete actually heals itself when exposed to seawater. Now blink, you are in Egypt. Geochemist Michel Barsoum discovered in 2006 that Giza pyramid blocks contain geopolymers, artificial stone created by a chemical process. Blink again. You are in Peru. The walls of Sacsayhuaman show evidence of geopolymer technology, according to Joseph Davidovitz. 3 civilizations, 3 continents, the same advanced chemistry. Roman concrete, or opus cementitium, uses volcanic ash, lime, and seawater to create aluminum tobermorite crystals, a rare mineral that strengthens the structure over centuries. The Pantheon's dome, built in 125 CE, remains crack-free after nearly 1,900 years. Michel Barsoum's analysis of Giza blocks using electron microscopy found microstructures inconsistent with natural limestone, but consistent with geopolymer cement. Joseph Davidovitz demonstrated in 1982 that ancient geopolymers could be made by mixing aluminosilicate materials with alkali activators like Egyptian natron. Analysis of Inca structures in 2014 also found evidence of cast stone, including air bubbles inconsistent with carving. Modern attempts to recreate Roman maritime concrete have failed to achieve the same longevity. Most reproductions crack within years. Chemical analysis of Great Wall foundations from 200 BCE revealed the use of sticky rice mixed with calcium carbonate, creating a composite stronger than pure lime mortar. a formula used for 1,500 years and then lost. Mainstream historians argue that ancient builders had time and empirical knowledge, discovering formulas through trial and error. They claim modern concrete is engineered for speed and cost, not durability. But if it's just ash and lime, why do our attempts fail? The geopolymer debate is even more contentious. If Barsoom and Davidovits are right, it means ancient peoples understood alkaline activation chemistry, a field only invented in the 1940s. The concrete remains harder than modern formulations, mocking our attempts to understand it. Top 8. Precision core. Drilling in granite. Core drilling in granite. You are in the Aswan granite quarries of Egypt, staring at a perfectly circular hole about 4 inches in diameter drilled into solid granite. Inside, you feel spiral grooves left by the drill. Geologists estimate the drill advanced at 1 inch per minute, a speed modern diamond drills struggle to match. But this was done 4,500 years ago, millennia before diamond tools. Next to it lies the extracted core, a perfect cylinder with the same grooves. Archaeologists suggest copper tubes with sand, but engineer Christopher Dunn tested this in 1995 and failed to penetrate granite at any measurable rate. In Peru at Ollantaytambo, identical core holes appear in andesite and granite. Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie first documented this in 1883, expressing bafflement. Christopher Dunn revisited the evidence, noting that a granite core in the Petrie Museum shows spiral grooves indicating a drill advance rate of 0.1 inch per rotation. This implies immense downward pressure, estimated at 1 to 2 tons, in speeds modern drills only achieve with diamond bits. At Aswan, core holes range from 2 to 11 inches in diameter. Industrial archaeology attempts by Dennis Stocks in 2003 achieved slow drilling in limestone, but could not replicate the results in granite. Tool marks analyzed under a microscope by Dunn in 2010 show consistent spacing of grooves, suggesting a mechanical feed rate. Granite blocks at Giza also show saw marks from blades at least 9 feet long. Petrie calculated the saw would need 1 to 2 tons of force per linear inch. No such tools have been found in the archaeological record. Mainstream archaeologists maintain that copper tube drills with quartz sand were used, and that with enough time, even soft copper can cut hard stone. They claim the spiral grooves are natural artifacts of the process, and that tools were simply recycled. But experimental evidence repeatedly fails to match ancient results. The groove spacing is too consistent for hand rotation, and the sheer quantity of holes would have required an implausible commitment of resources if each took weeks. The cores remain in museums, perfect cylinders cut from the hardest stone, which we can measure but cannot explain. Top 9. Underground water management. Underground water management systems. You are in the Iranian desert where temperatures exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. You find a well, descend into the darkness, and find flowing, crystal clear water. This water traveled 30 miles through tunnels from distant mountains, dropping at a precise gradient of 1 to 2 feet per 1,000 feet. This is a qanat, an underground aqueduct requiring sophisticated surveying and mathematics. It has worked for 3,000 years without pumps. In Peru, beneath the Nazca Desert, the Puquios use the same principles. In Algeria, the Fougara systems are identical. 3 continents, identical solutions to water scarcity. Persian qanats have been documented since 1000 BCE. The Nazca Puquios were systematically studied in the 1990s by Katharina Schreiber. The Gonabad qanat in Iran extends 33 miles underground and has delivered water for 2,500 years. These systems use vertical shafts for ventilation and access, requiring precise surveying to maintain direction over miles. In Nazca, 36 functioning Puquios were documented in 1999 using spiral, stone-lined channels. North African Fougara systems date to 500 BCE and use the same design. Hydrologist Dale Lightfoot calculated that qanat construction requires maintaining gradients between 0.1% and 0.3%. Surveying this accurately underground, without modern instruments, demands sophisticated geometry. The Puquios show constant water flow despite zero rainfall, proving an understanding of aquifer hydrology. Mainstream historians call this convergent engineering, similar problems in arid regions yielding similar solutions. They argue the vertical shaft design is simply practical, but trial and error doesn't explain the precision. A gradient too steep causes collapse, while one too shallow causes silting. How did ancient surveyors maintain accuracy without laser levels? Why is the spacing of shafts so consistent across Persia, Africa, and Peru? The engineering is technically matching in shaft spacing and gradient ranges. Some suggest trade routes spread the tech, but that doesn't explain Peru. The water still flows through tunnels dug thousands of years ago, following gradients we struggle to match. Top 10. The Lost Wax Casting Technique. Lost wax casting technique. To create a bronze statue with intricate detail and hollow chambers, you invent a process. Carve a wax model, encase it in clay, heat it until the wax drains away, and pour in molten bronze. This is lost wax casting, a 12-step process requiring metallurgical knowledge and temperature control. It appeared in Mesopotamia around 3000 BCE, then the Indus Valley, China, West Africa, and Mesoamerica. Always the same technique and sophistication, yet we believe nobody taught the others. The earliest known objects, the Nahal Mishmar hoard in Israel, date to 3500 BCE. The dancing girl from Mohenjo-Daro dates to 2500 BCE. Chinese Shang Dynasty bronzes and West African Igbo Ukwu bronzes show the same global reach. The Nahal Mishmar hoard contains 442 objects with intricate detailing. The dancing girl exhibits a hollow cast construction requiring advanced mastery. Chinese ritual vessels called dings, made via lost wax, weighed over 180 kilos. Igbo Ukwu bronzes from the 9th century CE show extraordinary delicacy predating European contact. Mesoamerican casting appears in Colombia around 200 BCE, and later in Aztec cultures using identical methods. The process requires 12 distinct steps, from wax modeling to precision pouring. Chemist A.M. Pollard noted that this sequence must be followed precisely or the casting fails. No intermediate learning stages have been found. The technique appears fully formed. Mainstream archaeologists call it a natural innovation once metalwork knowledge advanced. They claim wax is an obvious choice for carving and melting. But the technique is counterintuitive. You destroy your original model to create the final object. The earliest examples show mastery, not experimentation. The Nahal Mishmar objects are sophisticated artworks, and the dancing girl requires precise thickness control. If independently developed, where are the failed castings and the learning curves? The bronzes remain in museums, perfect casts from a technique that appeared fully formed, as if remembered rather than invented. If these stories of ancient precision and forgotten genius change the way you look at the ruins of our past, then join us as we dig deeper. We are uncovering a history that has been hidden in plain sight for millennia. Subscribe to our channel and like this video to help us unearth the truth. Let's plant the seeds for a new understanding of our future. The next great treasure of history will be revealed soon.